Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, we are from fourth group. We are going to discuss about Indo-European and Proto-Indo-European. My name is Macinta Deswinazara as moderator and the last presenter. The first presenter is Azari Adelia Saputri. The second presenter is Yusuf Ibrahim. And the third presenter is Hantika Dewi.
My name is Adila Saputri. We can learn about introduction, the Indo-European family and Proto-Indo-European. The first, the Indo-European. The different changes have not been significant enough to result in mutual intelligibility, but it can happen that given enough time, dividing development can become so significant that completely different languages come into existence. Latin consists of 5 countries. The first, Portuguese, second, Spanish, third, French, fourth, Italian, and then Romanian. Germany itself is a member of an even larger family, called Indo-European, to which the Romance language also belong, as well as many other ones. Slavonic languages such as Thrace, Polish, Bulgarian, and etc., or Celtic language such as Welsh or Scottish Gaelic, etc. Okay, the second is Proto-Indo-European. All of Indo-European language are descendant of it, and it's spoken about 6,000 years ago. Presumably it's Eastern Europe roughly, north of the Black Sea, according to the most common view. Then, its speaker migrated in different directions, and it's slowly giving rise to spirit language, for example, Proto-Germanic, Proto-Celtic, which are the daughter of Proto-Indo-European. Okay, next, there is branches of Indo-European. Number 1, Celtic, or first Celtic. Celtic was spoken of large territories of Europe in antiquity, extending from the British Isles to southern and central Europe. But today, Celtic languages are restricted to northwestern Europe, and they are spoken by a relatively small number of people. Modern Celtic languages are divided into 2 groups. It's number 1, Brittonic. It's represented by 2 living languages. The first one is Welsh, spoken mostly in Wales, but scattered speakers are, of course, found all over Britain and North America. More interestingly, there is a Welsh community of a few thousand people in Patagonia, in the south of Argentina, which was a popular target area for Welsh immigrants for some time. In Wales, it is spoken by about 600,000 people according to the last census, by about 20% of Wales population. Number 2, Gaelic. The other branch of Celtic is represented by 2 living languages. The first of them is Irish Gaelic, spoken in Ireland alongside English. It is mostly referred to simply as Irish, but, or as in the case of Wales, this is ambiguous, and again, it is not to be confused with Irish English. And then number 2, Italic. This branch has received its name from Italy, where it originates from today. It basically means the Romance language, because the chief ancient representative of this branch is Latin, or of which the modern Romance language are descendants. Latin was originally only one of the Italic languages, the one spoken in Rome and relatively small area around it, known as Latium. With the rise of Rome and its expansion to the whole of Italy, and later to be vast area we call the Roman Empire, the other Italic languages were gradually displaced by Latin and becoming extinct, or these include Oscan and Umbrian, for example. Okay, Italic consists of some example. It's number 1, Classical Latin. Classical Latin was the norm which educated people use in writing and normal speech. And then number 2, Vulgar Latin. Vulgar Latin is from the Latin word vulgaris, meaning popular, belonging to the people. It has no negative connotation. Therefore, contrary to the generally negative meaning of the word vulgar today. Okay, and then number first after the example of italic, there is Portuguese. Portuguese, the national language of Portugal, is the first one. Since Portugal was one of the first European countries to colonize overseas territories, it is now spoken on several. And then number two, Galician. Galician is spoken in northwestern corner of Spain, north of Portugal. It is very close to Portuguese, especially to its neighboring northern dialects. So close in that we can regard it a dialect of Portuguese. Number three, Spanish. Spanish, the main language of Spain, which is also the nationwide official language because modern standard Spanish originated from the dialect of Castile. The province where Madrid is also found. It is frequently referred to as Castilian, or a term especially popular in Latin America, where people speak Castilian by they themselves are not Spanish. Number four, Catalan, spoken in east of Spain, chiefly in Catalonia and Valencia, but it is also its native language of Balearic Island, also belonging to Spain. Number fifth, ancient historical close related to Catalan. It is also known as Provençal, although strictly speaking the two terms are originally not equivalent. And then number six, French. French is spoken in several countries of Europe. French, the southern part of Belgium known as Wallonia, as well as in the western part of Switzerland. Its first documentation dates from the middle of the 9th century, making it the first Roman language to be written, or at least no earlier text survives. And then number seven, Italian. Italian is spoken in Italy, or where it is the national language, and in the south of Switzerland. Spoken Italian, in fact, so extreme in dialect variation, and several dialects are so different that they are mutual unity between. So their speakers need to use standard Italian to converse with each other. Okay, number 8, Rhetoromance. Rhetoromance, which is not really a language but rather an artificial term used for a group of closely related Romance languages spoken in the southeast of Switzerland and the northeast of Italy. Okay, next, Romanian. Romania is the official language of Romania and the Republic of Moldova. It is also spoken by a small number of speakers in Hungary, the Ukraine, and Serbia. Interestingly, there are dialects of Romanian spoken in Macedonia and even as far away as the Istria Peninsula in Croatia. And then next, Dalmatian. Dalmatian, a Romance language formerly spoken in Dalmatia, or roughly in the middle and the southern part of the Croatian coastal area, which is now extinct but there are written sources. Okay, next, Germanic. The collapse of the Roman Empire was exacerbated by the southern and eastern expansion of Germanic tribes. The Germans first emerged in history occupying the North European plain from Flanders in the west of the Vistula River in the east. They also occupied at least southern Scandinavia. The Germanic languages are divided into three major groups: Eastern, Northern, and Western. Eastern Germanic is attested by a single language, Gothic, the language of the Visigoths who settled in the Balkans, where the Bible in the Gothic language, or only portion of which survived, was prepared by the Christian missionary Wells, this 4th century translation. And the next, the Northern group of Germanic language in the earliest attested because of runic inscriptions that date from 300 onwards that present an image of Germanic sources that they resect not only the state of Proto-Northern Germanic but are also to the forms suggested from the ancestral language of the entire Germanic group. And the next, the main West Germanic language were German, Frankish, Saxon, Dutch, Frisian, and English. For comparative purposes, the earliest stage of German and English are the most important. Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Yusuf Ibrahim and I will continue the presentation. The branches of Indo-European. The next is Slavonic. This branch is also called Slavic, especially in North America. Its members cover most of the eastern half of Europe, but one of them, Russian, is spoken in huge territories in Asia, extending to the Pacific Ocean. Slavonic languages are traditionally divided into three groups: West, South, and East Slavonic. The first, West Slavonic, includes three languages: Czech, Slovak, Polish, and Serbian. Czech is spoken chiefly in the Czech Republic. It is closely related to Slovak, so closely indeed that speakers of these two languages can understand each other very well. And then Slovak is spoken today chiefly in Slovakia, but there are many speakers living in the Czech Republic too. The third, Polish, is the largest of the West Slavonic languages in terms of the number of speakers. It is spoken mainly in Poland, but interestingly for students of English, there has been massive Polish immigration to the UK, especially London, since Poland joined the European Union in 2004. As a result, there is now a significant Polish-speaking community in the UK, amounting to tens of thousands of people. And the last, Serbian, is a language spoken in the eastern part of Germany, close to Poland, mainly around the town of Lausitz. It is the only West Slavonic language which is not an official one and which is a minority language in the country where it is spoken. The second is South Slavonic, includes several languages. Starting for the West, Sloven, also called Slovenian, is spoken mainly in Slovenia, but there are autochthonous Sloven communities in Italy, Austria, as well as in Hungary. And then the next language is Croatian. Croatian is closely related to Serbian. In fact, this is an understatement. The differences between the two are no bigger than between standard British and American English. And then the South Slavonic branch, including two closely related languages, Macedonian and Bulgarian, spoken in Macedonia and Bulgaria respectively. Macedonian was officially recognized as an independent language as late as the middle of the 20th century by the then Yugoslav government. In order to emphasize its difference from Bulgarian, because Macedonia was also claimed by Bulgaria. This again illustrates the political and cultural complications involving linguistic identity. And then the third is Slavonic, includes three languages. The one with the highest number of speakers is Russian, which is in terms of the number of speakers as well as geographically the largest of all Slavonic languages in general, being the official language of the Russian Empire, then of the Soviet Union. It is spoken in a number of countries outside present-day Russia, as well the eastern part of the Ukraine, for example. The second, Belarusian, also known as Belarusian, is the national languages of Belarus, although it may actually be spoken by a minority since much of the country is Russian speaking. And the last is Ukrainian, spoken in the Ukraine. Its speakers are concentrated in the western half of the country. And then the next Indo-European branches is Baltic. This branch is represented by two living languages. The first of them is Lithuanian, the official language of Lithuania, and the other one is Latvian, spoken in Latvia. And then the next branches is Albanian. This branch contains one language only, Albanian. This means that the language is Indo-European, but it has no close relatives. It is spoken in Albania as well as Kosovo, where Albanian speakers constitute an overwhelming majority. Kosovo was an autonomous area of Serbia, but it declared independence in 2008. And then the next is Hellenic. This branch contains one member only, Greek, which however is one of the most influential Indo-European languages due to its ancient written tradition. On the one hand, alphabetic writing was invented in ancient Greece. The Greek alphabet was also adapted although in a modified form by the Romans, so the Roman alphabet is Greek in origin. Second, the flourishing literary culture of ancient Greece had a decisive influence on Roman literature as well as the Latin language, which adapted many Greek words. In fact, another reason why Greek has been so influential is that it is the language in which the books of the New Testament were written. At present, Greek is spoken chiefly in Crete and part of Cyprus, but there are significant immigrant Greek communities in the UK as well as in the USA.
Okay, now I'd like to continue the presentation, still about Indo-European family. The next branch of Indo-European family is Armenian. Armenian is spoken in Armenia and its neighboring like Eastern Turkey, but the Armenian population on that area was exterminated by the Ottoman authorities during World War I. Armenian also has a special alphabet of its own and has long and rich literary tradition. And the next branch is Indo-Iranian. Indo-Iranian includes several languages. They are Indic for Eastern and Iranian for Western. Indic has branch also. The first is Hindustani. Hindustani called Hindi in India and Urdu in Pakistan. Second, Bengali. And the third is Romani that was spoken by Gypsies or Hungarian people. Historically, Indic has a long literary tradition for more than 2,500 years. The most ancient form of written Indic is known as Vedic, the language of Vedas or the founding text of Buddhism. In the 4th century BC, the Indian grammarian Panini standardized the language by creating classical Sanskrit. However, the spoken language was different and had several varieties known as Prakrits. And the modern Indic language are descendants of ancient Prakrits. And then for Iranian, it's represented to Persian or Iran language that was spoken by an estimated 1.5 billion people, amounting to half of the total number of Indo-European speakers. Persian has two major languages. They are Pashto, spoken by Afghanistan, and Kurdish, spoken in several countries, including Iraq, Iran, Armenia, and Turkey. The next branch is others. There are two branches of Indo-European that spoken in ancient times. One of them is Anatolian, which represents Tahiti, and the other one is Tocharian. Both of them don't have descendants, so it's not discussed in detail. Okay, well, we have done discuss about Indo-European family, and now we will discuss about Proto-Indo-European. As mentioned earlier, the parent language of Indo-European family called Proto-Indo-European or PIE that was spoken about 6,000 years ago. But PIE is not attested because there is no documentary evidence is available. And what we know about it is results of reconstruction like using historical linguistic methods and comparing the Indo-European language. Next, the sounds of PIE. There are vowel and consonant. As you can see, on the vowel schwa only occurs as short. Otherwise, the short and long vowel are arranged neatly into pairs. And therefore, consonant, as mentioned on the table, there is a rich set of stops, but there is only one fricative S which is voiceless. Indeed, a wholesale transformation of the system is characteristic feature of Germanic, which will be discussed in the next chapter. That's all explanation from me. Thank you.
The next material is about the reconstruction of polymorphisms. It is the illustration only, so you may see the screen. There are some example of showing the root morpheme meaning to bear or to carry in some Indo-European languages, in English, Latin, Ancient Greek, Czech, and Sanskrit. You can see the difference, but the forms of the roots, although not identical, are still quite similar in the various languages. They all begin with some labial consonants, and in R, and with the exception of the Sanskrit, they have short vowel E. In English, beer, in Latin, fair, in Ancient Greek, pear, and Czech, bear, and Sanskrit, pear. Then the next is the morphology of pi. The first is noun, adjective, and pronouns. It is divided into three grammatical genders. In German and Slavonic language, the first is masculine. It is noun ending in a consonant. In the screen, you can see the example is bread. In English, means brother. So bread is included a masculine word because it is ending with T, consonant T. And the second is feminine. The nouns ending in A. For the example on that screen, roka, or in English means hand. It is included a feminine word because it is ending in A. The third is nurture. Nouns ending in O or E. For the example, mesto and more. Those examples are nothing to do with the natural gender. It doesn't mean that brother is male being, neither feminine is neither hen is a girl being, something like that. It's not like that. The second is distinction in numbers. In English, as we know, there are two numbers, it's singular and plural, but in pi there were three, singular, plural, and dual. In English, we use word more than one as plural, as in town, two towns, but in Slovene it is different. Town in Slovene, mesto. Two towns in Slovene, mesti. More than two towns in Slovene, mesta. The dual, all versus both, neither versus either, etc. are systematic category. It still exists in English. And then the next, nouns only have two inflected forms. It is nominative and genitive, but in pi there were 8 cases. The first is the nominative. It is subjective case or subject of the sentence. For the example, I work a lot. The nominative is I. And then the second, the accusative or objective case, or we know as direct object. For the example, I found him. Him is the accusative. And then the third, the genitive, it is possessive case, or this case is to show possession with noun using apostrophe s in the case of singular and s apostrophe in case of plural noun. For the example, boys. And then the fourth, the dative, it is vocative object or vocative or indirect object used for a noun that identifies a person. For the example, animal, object, and many other, being addressed or occasionally the determiners of the noun. For the example, I gave him a book. Him is the dative. And then the fifth, the instrumental or expressing instrument case. For the example, by or with that. The example, I travel by train. By is as the instrumental. And the sixth, the ablative or the location case. It is expressing source or origin case corresponding to English preposition phrase with from. For example, he came from London. From here is the ablative. And then the seven, the locative or expressing location case. For example, at, in, on in English, but it was also used together with some preposition. This case doesn't survive into Germanic either. For the example, at, in, on. And then the eighth, the vocative or addressing someone. For example, Father, please give me $20. Father here means the vocative. And then the second is verbs, is divided three numbers, singular, plural, and dual. It is no longer exists in Old English, but it was in German. For example, I sleep in Slavonic language means lepa. We to sleep, slepos. We more than to asleep, slepam. After the numbers, and then the second is verbal categories. There are four: voice, aspect, tense, and mood. The first is voices, divided into two. The first is active. The active voice had the same function as in English as active. And then the second is middle. The middle voice express reflexive as well as passive function in English. And then the second aspect. In modern English, it is divided into three aspects: simple, perfect, and progressive. But in Pi, there were perfect aspect corresponding to perfect in modern English, and then the imperfect corresponding to progressive. It is also express habitual events, and then the aorist corresponding to simple form in English, especially simple past one. And then the third tense or grammatical category. The future tense doesn't mean as future time. For example, the train arrives at 5 p.m. The train arrives at 5 p.m. The sentence refers to future time, but arrive is grammatically speaking a present tense form. The fourth is mood, divided into four: indicate, imperative, subjunctive, and optative. The next is about, or it is in English known as aphophony. It is a systematic variation of vowels in the same root or affix, or in related roots or affixes, especially in Indo-European languages, that is usually paralleled by the difference in use or meaning. Ablaut is relevant for understanding of modern English primarily because several irregular verbs owe their different vowels to it. For example, the form of swim, 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 swim. And then the next is vocabulary, the Indo-European heritage in English. There are 7 ancient words of Pi in Pi origin, include the first is mass pronouns as well as article. For example, I, you, we, they, etc. The second, several prepositions. For example, in, at, of, to, on, and etc. The third is several auxiliaries. For example, will, can, may, and etc. And the fourth, numerals from 1 to 10. The fifth, nouns such as girl, boy, or wall. And the sixth, verbs such as be, come, sing. And then the seven, several common adjective as in young, thin, full, or deep. I think that's all for me. Thank you. That's all from our group. We are truly sorry if we make any mistakes. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.